suggestion and rumor that the higher-ups in the police force are corrupt and receiving payoffs from elements of organized crime. This suggestion or rumor, I believe, is true, especially after, and then he goes on to discuss a police officer, actually, a police chief that commits suicide after he was set up by some coworkers, and he actually asked the Americans to investigate his case because he didn't trust the police in his own province and his own country, and he also, I believe, had been gang stalked. He'd been targeted, and he commits suicide because he thought that once you're gang stalked, it's a death sentence. So that was something else.
Is that a fact that he actually did that to himself? Is it a possibility that they got rid of him and made it look like that?
I think he did it to himself because I think so. I was under the impression that. Okay. However, my husband tried to look for the story, the newspaper article again, and he was unable to find it on the internet. So
yeah, because when you keep in mind, that's how they get rid of people. They make it look like something it really isn't, and that's a specialty of theirs.
That's possible, but he was set up. He was accused of sexually harassing some female police officers after he had risen to the position of chief. Now, he'd risen to the position of chief, and it just seems far-fetched that he would ruin his chances in the new position, and seems surprising to me, and then actually shoot himself in the head. So, yeah, but anyhow, yes, I suppose we don't know what really happened.
Was he an older man?
I'm not sure if he was an older man. He was a chief, so he'd been in the police for quite a long time.
Okay, so what happens here is, and this happens in a lot of instances with PD, that you have the old timers that come from the old school that believe in enforcing the laws, and then they have a conflict of interest with this, if you want to call it New World Order, global government type of theory. Those guys are too good. They're too good, and they have a tough time either adjusting to this corruption and the payoffs and what have you, because now they have a conscience and they have morals. So now all of a sudden, everything that they've learned and everything that they've done up to a certain point is now becoming corrupted, and their lives are threatened by that, and their jobs are affected.
Yes, exactly, and he could even have been a whistleblower because exactly, right?
Yeah, it's very possible. Very possible that he could not stand to watch his department that he took pride in be corrupted by organized crime and by crooked politicians taking payoffs.
Exactly.
And protecting drug dealers and gang members and all this other kind of thing. So your husband reported that. So in turn, they came by and they took your first child.
Yes, this was in Ontario. Yes, 5 months old. We left BC because, as you can see, we had a lot of problems in British Columbia, and the gangs were becoming very prominent, and in fact, they're even more prominent there now. They're very, very powerful. But we came to Ontario and Toronto. We told them what had happened in BC, and Toronto's Children's Aid Society accused my husband of suffering from schizophrenia, paranoia, and delusions, and they took our 5-month-old infant daughter.
Who made the diagnosis that he was schizophrenic and paranoid?
My husband had spoken very briefly with a psychiatric nurse by the name of Frank Semino at Woodlands Mental Health in Vancouver.
Why did he go there?
He went there because he was having a lot of fears about gang stalking, actually, and he went there more to confide his fears, and he was labeled as by the psychiatric nurse who had no business diagnosing him.
Right.
He had no business, and he just persisted. You're delusional, and so that, and when we got to Toronto, we found out that this is what they were saying. And
she's a nurse, not even qualified to make that judgment, but nevertheless.
Exactly. And another thing.
Okay, what happened when she declared that? What happened when the nurse declared that? I mean, she stated in a report that he was delusional and all this other stuff.
It's actually his name was Frank, this nurse, a male nurse.
Oh, okay.
He declared it, and then my husband didn't go back to see him anymore. He thought that this was ridiculous. But Toronto Children's Aid Society took it very seriously. And, you know, this psychiatric nurse, Frank Semino, he changed his name to Frank Germano when they apprehended our second child. So this character has two names, actually, and I'm not sure what...
Jennifer, keep that in mind. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll be right back. This is Freedom Fighters for America Radio with Jennifer Fitzgerald telling her story and her husband's story of corruption. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
And trouble, and beneath some loving care, and nothing, oh, nothing's going right. Close your eyes and think of.
It was harder for me than last night.
And
because they're on a break now. Because he's just more detailed than Miriam.
Yes,
and plus I'm tired. And I did it last night. No, I haven't got it yet. I never took it.
Wherever I am,
last night I was fresh.
Running.
It made me burp. After I did my show last night, I met that woman, Andrea, on the subway. Remember, you know Andrea, the blonde woman? She said she heard me on the radio. Because you emailed her the links. Yeah. She said she would pray for me.
Welcome back to Freedom Fighters for America Radio. We have with us tonight Ms. Jennifer Fitzgerald, and she's telling her story about what happened to her and her family. Welcome back to the show, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi. So you were talking.
Hello.
Hi. Talking about. We're having a little technical difficulty. Excuse me. We were talking about your husband being diagnosed by a nurse who changed his name, and
can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
I can't hear anything. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I lost you there for a moment.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Can you tell us about what happened with your second child? I mean, he was already diagnosed by someone who may or may not be qualified to have diagnosed, probably not from what I understand, because this is how they set people up. But so they diagnosed him that way, and then what happened?
They diagnosed him that way, and they took our daughter, and then on July 11th, 2007, I had another baby, and this was our son, and they came into the hospital when he was 1 day old. There was a social worker there, a Toronto Children's Aid Society social worker.